야, 나들이 가서 어디 I think at the beginning I want to share my view about I think sort of the trend of global level. I feel the last few thousand years, people, there's a very much sort of emphasis about religion, including Buddha Dharma, with expectation, you see, all the things which we want may fulfill through prayer. Then, about last 2-3 centuries, science and modern technology develop. So science and technology brought many things which we want immediately fulfilled through prayer with 1,000 years. So we just wait. Technology brought immediately. So naturally, you see, people develop more interest about science, about modern technology. Then, later part of 20th century, I think including Thai, you see, your material development, you see, among Asian countries, you highly develop, especially in the Bangkok area. You gradually realize or experience limitation of the value of material value. You can be billionaire, very rich, but as a person, very unhappy person. I think among the Thai people, perhaps those ordinary people in the village, maybe as far as mental peace is concerned, may be greater than those Thai in the big city millionaire. Isn't it? So naturally, we human beings, we are sentient beings. You see, we need human affection. At the family level, you have full of affection. Every family member feel very happy, safe. Individual who receive more affection from friends feel much happier. Even sick people in hospital, surrounded by nurses or doctors who really showing human feeling, human compassion. And they're the sick person, physically painful, but mentally much happier. Isn't it? So then, the human affection is so important in human life, human society. But then money, television, good car, no ability to show affection to us, isn't it? I often you see telling people, those people who have diamond ring, very sort of high price, right? Some are maybe very priceless, very high price. But if you kiss that ring, the ring no ability to show response to us, affection, no. But one small dog may be a little dirty, but if you show them genuine sort of compassion, they have the ability to respond to us, affection, isn't it? So therefore, later part of 20th century, gradually you see people, more and more people, showing the limitation of pure materialistic sort of value. Then begin to think about deeper inner value, including many scientists, particularly medical scientists. They begin to realize for good health, in order to sustain our immune system, peace of mind is very essential. Too much stress, too much fear. With fear, anger, hatred, very harmful for our health. So now among scientists also you see showing interest about how to develop mental peace or calm mind. So now we are 21st century, just the continuation of later part of 20th century. So I found in the West, like America or Canada and Europe and Australia, in those, and also Japan, materially, technologically highly developed, industrialized nation. And then you see people, more and more people, now showing genuine interest about our inner peace, calm mind. So that now, also the various different religious traditions, I think major religious tradition, all talking about compassion, about love. And whenever we face some problem, and we talk forgiveness, we talk tolerance, and sense of brotherhood, sisterhood. According to theistic religion, all entire humanity, entire world created by one source, that's God. And according to Islam also like that. Judaism also like that. And there are many other sort of traditions, you see, believe that way. Then we Buddhist, of course, you see, we believe law of causality. Buddha always say, we all human beings same, equal. Everyone want happy life, happiness, do not want suffering. So he emphasizes on that. Then, if possible, to help other. If not, at least restrain harming other. So that's Buddhist, I think, principal message of Buddha is ahimsa, non-violence. Non-violence entirely depends on compassion. Compassion is motivation, non-violence is act of compassion. Clear? So therefore, even those traditionally non-Buddhist countries, including some scientists, now showing genuine interest about Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist science. So that's today's sort of situation. So I think that's quite, a good thing. Now people not only taking care about our physical comfort, but also taking care about mental comfort. So for physical comfort, material value, material facility provide us physical comfort. That also we need. Meantime, simply taking care about the physical comfort neglect about mental comfort, that's wrong. If you are animal, then okay. Good shelter, sufficient food, no immediate disturbances, then they feel very happy. But we are a human being. We have this very sophisticated mind, isn't it? So you see, a lot of destructive actions come from this intelligence. Now, like the September 11th event, other animals cannot do that. Only we human beings, with help of technology and education, so immense destructions. Human wonderful intelligence and the fuller knowledge about modern science and modern technology used for destruction. So, all these event is clearly demonstrated. Unless we take care about our emotion, the endless problem remain, more problem. On top of global warming, like a tsunami, all these things will come more often because of the global warming. So, on top of these problems, our intelligence, wonderful intelligence, also become additional sort of source of problem. That's very pity, isn't it? No. So now, you Thai and also the Vietnamese and Chinese and Japanese and Korean, of course Burmese and Sri Lanka and also the Cambodia, Laos, traditionally these countries are Buddhist country, and with Tibet and also Mongolia. So as a Buddhist, we never sort of try to propagate Buddha Dharma in other community. It's not good. Buddha himself is always respect different views. So therefore, it is not our interest to propagate Buddha Dharma. But it is our own interest to preserve 1,000-year-old our own Buddhist tradition. Clear? So you Thai people, utilize modern facility, but at the same time should not neglect about Buddha's sacred teaching. Clear? Now, Sangye yanda samejo, Jeye yanda samejo, Pape yanda samejo, samejo, there's a number of members. Nada shimla sheva. So yesterday, as I think already mentioned, the proper way for practice of Buddha Dharma and the preservation of Buddha Dharma is, firstly, practice. Without practice, then you won't get real sort of values or benefit. Through practice, you gain more experiences. Then really, you see, you feel something really helpful. But in order to practice that, the Buddha Dharma, not like other religion. Other religion, simply faith to God. The Buddha Dharma, as I mentioned yesterday, Buddha stressed, you are your own master. Everything depends on yourself. Then ultimately, he mentioned the source of problem is ignorance. Ignorance, there are many levels of ignorance. The main ignorance is ignorance which distorted sort of view about the ultimate reality. That's the question. Now you see the subject of shunyata, subject of anatma. So that we must utilize our intelligence. Otherwise you can't understand. And we should know the sort of emotion, also these destructive emotions, the system of the destructive emotion, the whole structure of emotion. Then, with fuller knowledge, the system of these destructive emotion, how develop, what it is immediate causes and long-term causes, and what interrelations among these destructive emotions. With fuller knowledge, then you can also engage or you can combat this destructive emotion. Destructive emotion will not go away through just prayer. Must utilize our intelligence. So therefore, Buddha Dharma very much stress importance of panya, wisdom, panya. If just faith sufficient, then no need panya. So therefore, the Buddhist way of practice is utilize human intelligence maximum way. Through that way, transform our emotions. Destructive emotion reduce, positive emotion increase. That's the way of Buddha Dharma. So study is very, very essential. Clear? So I want to ask you, please pay more attention for study. Okay. I myself, now over 76 years old, but I consider myself as a student of Buddha Dharma. Still study and think and meditate. So that I want to share with you.
So yesterday we touched on the selflessness of persons.
Okay. Now I speak together. 자장가.
So with regard to selflessness of persons, when you reflect on it, this notion that we have about an I, which is grasping at an independently existing self, although we have this notion of an I, of course, when we say there's no the self, when we talk about selflessness, we are not saying that this I is not there conventionally, but the I that we are rejecting in the sense of selflessness is the independently existing, solid kind of existing self. And because of this kind of notion of independently existing solid entity of an I, therefore we develop love and hate. And therefore, in Buddhism, destructive emotions the Buddhism shows that of the antidote. Antidote in terms of certain antidotes which shake these destructive emotions. So in terms of these kind of the first type of antidote, so we counteract those of hatred with love, and then attachment with feeling discussion about things, and then the ignorance with their of understanding of dependent origination. And when you feel rather very low-spirited, you think about the good qualities of Buddha and so forth. So when you meditate on love, what this does is it reduces the strength of your hate, anger, or hatred. And then the other type of antidote is called the antidote which gets rid of, uproots the destructive emotions. So because unless and until you are able to uproot the destructive emotions, then you cannot make it completely gone. Later on, when the conditions are right, then these negative emotions will arise again. So therefore, we in this kind of antidote, we use antidotes which uproot. And for example, in this case, ignorance is a distorted view, and so when we know the reality of things, then we can get rid of that. So if you understand the ego, the selflessness of things, then you will be able to see that this self-grasping attitude is something that can be put an end to. And as we talked with regards to cessation, the distorted views, distorted perceptions are something which are against the reality. And because the reality is always there, when you understand the reality as it is, then this understanding and this wisdom will always go against the ignorance, the grasping at itself. And similarly, as we talked about yesterday, the mind in it, the basic state of the mind itself is something which is not that of destructive emotions. Destructive emotions are not in the nature of this mind. And so because of these two reasons, because there is the reality, the truth about the selflessness of things, and also because the mind itself basically is not doesn't have the destructive emotions in its intrinsic nature. Therefore, there's a possibility for us to overcome the delusions, destructive emotions. And also, what we do is, because of clinging at some kind of a true existence of things, this gives rise to the other destructive emotions, attachment and hatred and so forth. And why that happens basically is because we have a sense of an I also. And so because things appear to us as if they have some kind of essence in and of themselves in relation to oneself, we grow attachment and so forth. Therefore, when you are able to, when you consider or when you think about the selflessness of this person to whom the things appear either as attractive or unattractive and so forth, then you'll be able to see that the objects themselves that appear as beautiful or unattractive and so forth also lack or are devoid of any kind of self-existence. And therefore, you will be able to see that the things that we use are selflessness. And therefore, you can see that the self, the person who uses or utilizes the objects, and the objects themselves that are utilized, both are devoid of selfhood. And then, with regards to the selflessness of phenomena, there is the Chittamatra philosophical view, and then the Madhyamaka philosophical view or interpretation of the selflessness of phenomena. Paragraph. Paragraph 4 of on page 9. So Dharma or Chu means that which holds its own nature or identity. So, in this sense, Dharma includes everything that exists. But here we are making two distinction between phenomena and Dharma is translated into phenomena and then persons. So phenomena in here, in the context of the division between the self-person and phenomena, refers to the psychophysical aggregates. So in Abhidharma we find mention of the 12 sources and so forth in terms of the phenomena. So within the constituent factors, there are those of the physical and then consciousness aspects. And then a third type of phenomena known as a non-associated factor. So the aggregates and constituent factors and so forth. With regards to the physical things, they are made up of small particles. So so however much you break the particles down to the smaller particles, you always find a smaller particle without any kind of which is not indivisible. And then you also find these particles always moving. So because there is movement, you can talk about its different facets, the part that is in the front and the back and so forth. And so if there is no such parts, then you cannot talk about the movement of the particles at all. Of course, with regards to non-physical things, immaterial things, then you can talk about their moments, changing momentarily, the previous moment and the past, future moment and so forth. But we can't talk about the front side and the back side of those immaterial things. But still, they are with parts. And there is no partless particles or partless consciousness. Although in certain Vaibhashika systems they do assert such things. So here, according to the Chittamatra view, or when you look at the physical things, if the things exist from their own side, then you should be able to find something when you analyze it into the different, the smaller particles. And whereas if you break a thing into its parts and still further into its particles and so forth, you cannot point to anything as being that object. So therefore, things do not exist in the way they appear to us, as if they have some kind of entity or essence from their own side. Of course, there are things which exist, such as smell, form, and taste, and so forth. But the form, sounds, smell, and so forth, if you try to look for them in the objects, breaking down things up into its parts and so forth, you cannot point to anything as being those objects. So therefore it is said that they exist or as some kind of a manifestation of certain imprints that are left on the mind. And therefore what this is saying is that things do not exist externally. So if things did have some external existence, then we should be able to find them when we analyze and look for them. And therefore, since we cannot find them through analysis, what this shows is that they exist merely by the force of the imprints and of the mind. And therefore, the Chittamatras, or the mind-only school, says that the things that we perceive are of the same substantial existence with the cognition that perceives them. And they do not have any separate substantial existence from the consciousness or the cognition which perceives them. But what appears to us is that the things exist from, they call externally, disconnected from the consciousness. But that's not the way things exist. So the text says that thus since the time beginningless, being attached to form, etc., incorrectly, since the childish, to the childish, the mind itself appears as if separate from the mind. separate from the objects that appear to it, appears as if they are separate from the mind itself. So I think that particular passage is missing in the translation. And then, in the ultimate sense, the mind too cannot be real. So here, the Madhyamaka view is being explained. So Madhyamaka masters such as Bhaviveka and Buddhapalita, they do accept, assert that of externality of things. Whereas Chandarakshita, the Madhyamaka masters like Chandarakshita and Kamalashila, the author of this text, and others, many other Madhyamaka masters, they do not accept externality of things. So, although because of not accepting external phenomena, external existence, they follow this. They are like those of the Chittamatra, but then they do assert that the mind has no true existence, and therefore, from that point of view, they are Madhyamakas. And so this school of Madhyamaka accepts that what are known as dependent phenomena and the perfect phenomena are of perfect nature, and dependent nature are devoid of that of the imputed nature. And and Chittamatra say that the dependent nature and perfect nature are they do exist truly, whereas the Madhyamakas do not assert that. How can the mind, which depends on the false nature of physical form and so forth, and appears in various aspects, be real, just as physical forms and so forth are false, since the mind that does not exist separately from physical and so forth, which are false, it too is false. So there are various different appearances to our mind. And accordingly, if the subjective mind which perceives them were to exist truly, then it cannot perceive things. Just as physical form and so forth possess various aspects and their identities are neither one nor many, similarly, since the mind is not different from them, its identity too is neither one nor many. Therefore, the mind... So to the mind, various things appear, and therefore there are many different aspects to it. Although the continuity of the mind is one, but then each moment, if there is no the different moments of the mind, then the one moment of the mind would be of the same as the next moment of the mind, but that's not the case. Because we have the continuity of our mind, therefore we can talk about the first moment, second moment, third moment, and so forth. And therefore, the first moment is connected to the second and third moment, and so forth. So just as in the case of the particles, there are different facets. Likewise, here in the case of the consciousness or mind, it has its continuity with the different moments. Although when we think about a mind, it appears as if there is some kind of a solid or entity that we can point to, but it's not the case. We don't get the idea that the mind is made up of many different moments. but as the mind appears as if it's some one entity, a solid self-entity. But that's not the case. If that is the case, then the mind should not be depend on its different parts, the momentary parts. So the whole and an object which is a whole and its parts are dependent on each other. So the whole and the parts are dependent on each other. But if it exists truly, independently or truly, then it should not be dependent on its parts. And therefore, the Madhyamakas say that just as the external things do not have any true existence, likewise the mind itself or the consciousness itself is devoid of any true existence. So when you when you try to look at the mind and analyze down to its smallest moments, or you cannot point to it as being there being any kind of a mind as such. So whether it's the objects that are perceived or the perceptions themselves, nothing exists truly. So although they do not have any true existence, they still we have the distinction of the good and bad and one and many and so forth. But if you look at the essence of them, you cannot find anything as being the essence. What happens is, although the things do not have any true existence, when they appear to us, some things appear as being attractive, and that attractiveness is also perceived as being essentially existent from its own side. We perceive that object to be 100% attractive, and therefore we grow attachment towards it. And similarly, when we are angry at somebody, that person whom we are angry at is perceived as being totally 100% bad. But then that's not the case. Because when your anger has subsided and somebody kind of tells you that in that moment that this about the good qualities of that person or whom you were angry at, you would feel as if that can't be true. So because of your anger at the person, because you hated the person, then when somebody praises the person to that person, you can't believe it easily. And so that shows that you have this perception or the notion that that person whom you are angry at is totally 100% angry, bad, but that's not true. Because there are other facets to that person, and then you will be able to see that, and your anger may subside. And so when you understand that things are merely dependent and contingent, then you see that what looks attractive or what looks unattractive and to be an object of your total hatred, the way you perceive the person or as being attractive or totally unattractive, ugly, do not exist. So although things do appear to us as if they have some kind of true existence from their own side, as being attractive or unattractive, they do not have that kind of nature. So because we see things as being totally bad or good, we grow attachment. And therefore, in Madhyamaka philosophy, it is said that you have to destroy all kinds of objectification of things. So things appear as if they have some kind of true existence, and accordingly we also cling or at such a way of appearance of things. Then when you understand that there is no such way of existence of things, then you will be able to destroy that kind of objectification of things. So when you analyze for the object which is designated by name, and therefore you'll be able to see that under analysis you cannot find that object at all. Therefore, what you come to, what conclusion you come to is that they exist interdependently. So with regard to dependence, there is the dependence in terms of causality, and then which we touched yesterday, and then here what we are talking about is the dependence in terms of designation, designation by mind, or so with regard to this, in the Madhyamaka text, this is really explained in detail. So it's very significant. So this is about meditation on the selflessness of phenomena. So when you meditate on the selflessness of persons and phenomena, you can reduce attachment to yourself, and especially, for example, with regards to pride or arrogance. You maybe sometimes, of course, feel proud of your things, but mainly. So here, when you think about arrogance, what happens is you have a very strong notion of an I, which is truly existent, a truly existent I. And because of that, you become pride, and then because of that, you grow jealousy. And because of this jealousy, then you have lots of fear and insecurity, even in one family. If one of the family members has that very strong sense of an I, selfish, then the others would rather be suspicious about that person. And in the end, what happens is you remain lonely. Whereas if you are very less, intensity or stronger sense of an I, then you'll be respecting others, and therefore others would respect you, and then everybody will be happy. They'll live happily. So it is not the case that when you think about selflessness, you should not think that it's something philosophical matter, but this is relevant to our life, day-to-day life. And so bodhicitta, compassion, and renunciation, with the help of these, you can reduce those of attachment or desire, but strengthen your compassion and so forth. And then, on the other hand, by using your wisdom also, you can reduce the dose of attachment and anger and so forth. When you have compassionate mind, of course, with the help of that, your anger will be reduced to a certain extent. But then, in order to uproot that anger completely, what is needed is that of wisdom. So bodhicitta and compassion are basic to Buddhism, whereas the understanding of emptiness is something which is unique to Buddhism. So usually I tell my friends that Buddhism is about non-violence, the practice of not harming others, and then its philosophical view is that of understanding interdependence. So with regard to non-violence, even if possible, you should help others, but even if you are not able to help others, you should not harm them. The reason why we have to practice non-violence is that your happiness is related with others. And so because of that, you are dependent on others. If you harm others, you'll be also suffer the consequences. So avoiding violence, using harming others is ultimately for your own sake, because it brings about as its consequence harm to you. And so because of this, you can see that there is this idea of dependence on others. You and others are dependent on each other. And so in your daily life, it's important to be honest, not be hypocrite, and do something in front and say something in front and do something in the back, not doing that kind of thing. And so if you if you do that, then you'll be said to practice the Dharma. Otherwise, if you say something in the front and then do something else at the back, then that's hypocrisy. That's not good. Aryadeva, in his 400 verses, says, he was referring to, of course, the religions in India in those times. There, he says that there are certain religions which are more external, extroverted, such as practicing penance. And then there are certain religions which are based on the sounds of the Vedas and so forth. And whereas there is the Buddhism is a religion which emphasizes on the mind, the internal world of the mind. So using our mind and to overcome the delusions and so forth is something which is harder to do, harder compared to others practices like listening to the sounds of Vedas and so forth, and doing practices. So the most important content or the subject matter of this text by Kamalashila is so first is that of cultivating renunciation by thinking about or reflecting on the suffering nature of samsara, And then the second one is that of cultivation of compassion by thinking about the suffering of other sentient beings. And together with it, of course, we develop also that of loving kindness. And on the basis of these two, the loving kindness and compassion, then you develop that of bodhicitta. And then the third point is that of the wisdom, developing the wisdom. And so, in order to develop, in order to cultivate or attain that of the omniscient mind of a Buddha, you have to have both that of the vipassana and shamatha. So, having developed that of the shamatha, then you are. Shamalai Shila goes on to talk about the ways of developing vipassana, which is focused on the emptiness or selflessness. And then, having understood the empty nature of things, you also understand that things are like illusion. And with that understanding and perception, then you cultivate that of thinking that all sentient beings are like illusion, although they exist, they are like illusion, and they're lacking any kind of true existence, and therefore you cultivate that of bodhicitta. And so, in this way, you do the practice, cultivation of the wisdom and method, and then purify your mind of all negativities. So it seems we have now finished
this text, now completed. The essential part completed. Okay. Now on the Lalin Sodhima the
other text, 37 practices of Bodhisattvas. This one is going to
verses
go through it briefly.
Altruism. Da, Lalin Sodhima. Then the infinite altruism. Yeah, that kind of
So this text shows the infinite love, which is the broadest in the altruistic attitude, which is the bodhicitta. And so this text, 37 practices of Bodhisattvas, shows this extensively. Master Geshe Tongme Sangpo himself was a great scholar himself. There is a commentary on the Sutra Alamkara by him, and also a commentary on Mahayana Uttara Tantra, which are very good. So he was a great, excellent scholar. Not only that, then he was also a great practitioner of who was dedicated to the cultivation of bodhicitta. When he was living, he was recognized as one of the bodhisattvas, an example of a bodhisattva. So in this text, the actual practice is given in 37 verses, which are numbered. So the first verse which is numbered 1, this shows that we have found at this time this human life. In Thailand you have elephants. Elephants have really huge body, very strong. But human beings are able to tame elephants and use them, and it's not because human beings have bigger
Thailand,
body, stronger
you
body.
use elephant. Human being, you see, use elephant not because our physical is stronger than elephant, but our intelligence much smarter. So we control elephant. So today decided mi lugi cheju zodi churu namji ki shiro sa today. Churu namji ki shiro ki ta mi ludin tang zu yongja ki ta kasuru buge songdeng na ne ta mi di ta yakshu de yore mi ludi yakshu cha de yore.
Nagas and so forth are there, but we don't see them. So at this time when we have this human intelligence, it's a very precious life that we have, and therefore understanding emptiness and so forth have to come about by using our intelligence, and therefore because of this reason human life is considered to be precious. So and then the next verse which says passion towards friends churn like water. So all the troubles that we create in our life is because of our attachment towards loved ones and hatred towards enemies. And this verse shows that we have to reduce their love and hate. So in general, saying that your relatives and loved ones are in your own homeland, and also those you dislike are in your homeland. So in general, the people whom, in relation to whom you grow attachment or anger, this verse shows that you have to go away from such an homeland.
Not that meaning.
The main point is that you have to overcome hatred and anger, attachment towards different people. So if you stay away from a place where you are provoked with the anger and attachment, of course, because of certain wrong perceptions, we develop attachment and anger. But then, if you stay away from the stimulus, external stimulus, which give rise to such negative states of mind, then it will help to reduce them. Therefore, it says, the third verse says that seeking solitude will be helpful to reduce attachment and anger. So although physically you may be living in solitude, but then if your mind is full of hatred and all kinds of negative emotions, it doesn't really help. So here, solitude can be understood in terms of physical solitude and then mental solitude. Mental in the sense that you are free from all kinds of negative thoughts and emotions. And then also because of the environment, which can which can influence our mind, and therefore it's the next verse is talking about saying that we should be in a good environment. If you are in a company with people who are good, then you would also develop good attitudes and so forth. Whereas if you live amongst people who are always bad, then you would also have the same kind of traits. So when I was in Bombay recently, one school student asked me, this world is full of hatred and hypocrisy and so forth, dishonesty. And he asked me, how can we live our life in honesty, truthfulness and so forth? I was quite sad when he asked this. And there was also the businessman who asked the same question. And I said in my answer, I said that people who are hypocrisy and dishonest and so forth, they come down, they are always exposed in the news also. Whereas people who do really good things, like being compassionate to other people, elderly people, and the mothers taking care of their child and so forth, why these people are not in the media is because we take for granted that this is something natural to us, whereas the hypocrisy and committing crime and so forth are something which are not in the nature of human beings, and therefore it looks as if these people who are engaged in all kinds of hypocrisy, dishonesty, and so forth are seen as something that attracts our attention, and therefore they come in the media. And so even animals can show affection. If you are honest about what you do to an animal, then they will also understand it. If you have something else in your mind and then you do something try to do something to the animal, even they would detect your hypocrisy. When I was in Sarnath recently, when I was passing through the street, one pig was bound. Its legs were bound on with ropes, and then it was put on some kind of a some kind of a trailer, and so the pig was rather happily sleeping on it, the carriage. And so being dishonest and so forth are something people do not like, whereas honesty and so forth are something we like. So why criminals are people who are hypocritical and so forth are in the news is because their attitude, their behavior and so forth are something which is like shocking to us human beings, and therefore so we should not follow such examples of people. That's wrong. It's wrong to follow what the criminals and other people who are hypocritical and so forth do. So if you accompany bad people, then you would also develop those good bad traits. So you should. So verse number 5 tells us to have good friends. Verse number 6. So even if you have a good friend, if that friend doesn't have anything to offer to you in terms of developing your wisdom and so forth, then that's not enough. So what you have to have is a friend who is good, kind, and then also knowledgeable. So someone who is kind, who is knowledgeable and also humble. You should have such a friend. You should accompany such a friend. And so this verse number 6 main issue is that you have to have a good spiritual master with these qualities. So since the time of the Buddha, 2,600 years have passed, and we have so many great masters who have written their commentaries on the teachings of the Buddha, and most of them have written those texts after having applied the teachings of the Buddha within themselves and experienced them. And so this is saying that you should have a qualified master. In Tibetan society, we have the system of tulku, just like reincarnated lamas. And then, as it has become a custom, we have many tulkus who are not really lamas or great masters. So usually I make this. I say that between the lama and tulku there are four alternatives. There are those who are both, who are neither, and then those who are lama but not tulku, and then there are those who are tulku but not lama. So there are the different qualifications of a lama. There are given in the Vinaya up to there's the Tantra. And then in the Sutra Alamkara by Maitreya, it gives 10 different qualifications of master, such as being calm, subdued. The most important thing is unless and until the teacher himself is subdued or calmed, tamed himself or herself, then how can he or she be able to tame other people? And so someone who is alcoholic, how can such a person tell others not to drink alcohol, advise others to do that? So someone who is not tamed, not subdued, or through the practice of dharma, in order to become, in order to tell others to calm themselves down or tame themselves, the teachers should tame themselves by studying that dharma. So it's not talking about someone who has certain kind of ability to do a very sharp mo or divination and so forth, and do pujas for others. So you should the teacher should have the good practice of vinaya, discipline, and then concentration, and then of the wisdom. So the first three qualifications of a master are these. And then the fourth one is a teacher should be more knowledgeable than the student. So if you have a teacher in the school who is not less knowledgeable than the students, then how can he or she teach the students? And a teacher who is not able to even write well on the board, how can he or she teach the students? So if this is the case, even with the secular subjects, then it's more the case with the dharma, that the teacher has to be more knowledgeable than the students. And So the teacher also have to have. So these days we have false lamas or teachers. There are people who even claim to be Dharma Rajas or King of Dharma in China and Mongolia and there are people who claim to be the kings of Dharma. So we have to be very careful about finding the right Lama. So in Buddhism, it is said that we have to test or check the Lamas well. And then after having checked the person, and if you find the person to have all the qualifications of a master, then you have to take them to be your spiritual master. Until then, you can consider them to be some kind of a friend in the Dharma. When I was in Taiwan once, I heard that one Lama came to Taiwan, and then the sponsors offered made offering of money, and another person was looking at that Lama and the people and said that's what the Lamas, Tibetan Lamas needed. That's not good. And in the past, one Mongolian came to Tibet, came with all kinds of offerings. It was one of the Panchen Lamas. And then the Lama didn't find the person, or the Mongolian, to be a receptacle to the teaching. And the Lama said, I can't see well. Whereas the Lama's attendant was attracted by the offerings, the huge. And the attendants or the treasurer said, because he felt greedy for those of the offerings, and the Lama, the attendant himself said that if you are not able to see well, then I will write the letters, big letters, and you can read that and then give the teaching. And then after having read the text, then the Lama said, this is what I have done according to the instruction of the treasurer. And then at another time, another person came to request for teaching to the Lama. A very poor-looking person who was very devoted, and so when that poor person came for teaching, the Lama gave the teaching. It didn't matter to him whether he was able to read the text or not. And so you should have such a Lama who can actually check the situation. 20 or 30 years ago, one Chinese from mainland China came to see me and told me that many Tibetans from Tibet come to China, and claiming that they were Dharma Rajas, kings of Dharmas. And after having come to China, what they found was that these lamas were actually coming to China for money and women. So he asked me what I can do. And I said, there's nothing I can do from here, but you Chinese people have to first study the Dharma and know about the qualifications of the Lamas, the true teachers of the Dharma. And then by knowing them, you have to check the people who come to you claiming to be Lamas or teachers. So there are people even these days who act like that, so you have to be careful. The verse number 7. all the religions of the world have their own gods and refuges. In Buddhism, we have the three refuges of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Who is a Buddha, or what is a Buddha? By doing the practices and having overcome all kinds of defilements that are in one's mind stream, having overcome them completely and attained what are known as the purified state of mind, and also the omniscient state of the mind, such a person is called a Buddha. So a Buddha means someone who has dispelled all ignorance or darkness of ignorance and all kinds of shortcomings. And then also it can mean being full of knowledge. So a Buddha is someone who has overcome all kinds of shortcomings. So we're not saying that someone is a Buddha right from the beginning, but we read in the Jataka tales that the Buddha was like us, ordinary sentient beings, full of negativities, like those of the three poisons. But then, after having applied the teaching within himself, he was able to overcome or get rid of all the three poisons, and therefore have become fully knowledgeable. And so the Tibetan word for Buddha is Sangye. And so these two words combine both the qualities of a Buddha, which is that of purified state, and then being purified of all kinds of negativities, and also being knowledgeable about everything. And so such one who is qualified with these two qualities is a Buddha. And then the Dharma is the factor which makes somebody Buddha. So someone who has overcome or the three poisons is a Buddha, and the Dharma is the factor which brings about that quality of a Buddha. And so even before becoming a Buddha, someone who is training on the path to that enlightenment is able to do away with the different defilements. So first the person is able to develop the path within themselves, and then is able to partially overcome the certain shortcomings and faults, and then he or she is able to progress further and further as he or she is able to overcome more and more negativities within himself or herself. And finally, when all the negativities are gone, then the person becomes a Buddha. And so, before becoming a fully enlightened one, the one becomes an Arya being, someone who has overcome a certain degree of negativities. And so, someone becomes a Sangha, a Dharma, because of Dharma, and a Buddha because of Dharma, and someone also becomes a Sangha because of the Dharma. And therefore, the Dharma is the actual refuge. Whereas the Buddha is not the actual refuge, but then the teacher of Dharma. And then the Sangha are the assistants on the path. So they are like examples for us. When we think about a Buddha who is completely free from all kinds of faults and full of knowledge and excellent qualities, it looks very far away from us. And then if we think also about the path of seeing, which is the beginning of the Pasanga level, then that also looks rather far from distant from us. But then when we go bring ourselves further, when we trace where the Sangha comes from, we come to understand that a person goes through the path of accumulation, and then we will feel closer to the path. If we are able to reach that path of accumulation, then you'll be able to see that there is possibility to become someone on the path of preparation or application, which means that you have developed the Vipassana and Shamatha in relation to that of the selflessness. And then as you progress further on the path of preparation, then you are able to, when you see the truth or directly, then you become a Sangha member. So before you reach the Buddhahood, if you are able to see the progression from the beginning to that ultimate level, then you'll be able to see that the Sangha are those of our examples or the assistants on the path. So when we say Buddham Shranam Gacchami and Dhammam Shranam Gacchami and Sangham Shranam Gacchami, you have to understand them like that. By saying that the Buddha will be able to protect us, or how that happens is not through the blessing of the Buddha, but by applying the teaching within ourselves, developing the truth, the teaching of the Buddha within ourselves. And Buddha has said that the Buddha cannot cleanse the negativities of the sentient beings with water, and he cannot take out the suffering of the sentient beings from with his hands, nor the Buddhas can transpose their realizations within ourselves, the sentient beings. But how the Buddhas actually help us out of our problems is by showing the truth. From his own experience, how he has actually, the Buddha himself has journeyed on the path, realizing this truth. And by realizing the truth and developing the insights and so forth, and progressing to the path, how he has done all these things, he accordingly shows us. So out of the three objects of refuge, the Sangha refuge is the lowest one. So of course the monks and nuns are maybe regarded as Sangha, but unless and until someone has developed what is known as the cessation, the true cessation within himself or herself, that person doesn't become a true Sangha. And therefore, a true Sangha is someone who has overcome certain shortcomings and negativities and reached that level of cessation, true cessation within themselves. Whereas the ordinary people also, the monks and nuns, can be understood or regarded as Sangha members. So in Tibet, Ladakh and other in India and so forth, Africa and so forth, there are people who go into trance where they are possessed by certain spirits, and these kind of spirits or gods are not the objects of refuge, worldly gods. So since the Dharma is the actual refuge, now in order for us to have that dharma within ourselves, we have to practice the 10 virtuous actions and avoid the 10 non-virtuous actions in order to bring about the result of a true cessation within ourselves. So as explained earlier, what this is showing is that by understanding the causality, interdependence in terms of causality, then you have to avoid doing the 10 non-virtuous actions and take up the 10 virtuous actions. So as a result of practicing the 10 virtuous actions, which is like avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions, what you obtain as a result in the next life is that of higher rebirth. And then, even if you are within the, even if you have born in the higher realms, you're still in samsara. And so here, next step is that of attaining what is known as definitive goodness, or that of nirvana. So, verse number 9 shows that. And then from the verse number 10 onwards, the practice of bodhicitta is shown. So sentient beings who have been our kind mothers since time beginningless, because everyone is same in the sense of not wanting suffering but wanting happiness, therefore you are thinking of bringing happiness to sentient beings and avoid overcoming their suffering. If you just be indifferent to that, to their suffering, then that's not good. So the verse number 10 says that you have to generate or cultivate this state of bodhicitta to benefit all sentient beings. If you have this kind of altruistic state of mind, then what happens is your own goals will be fulfilled rather as a byproduct. So usually we commit the 10 non-virtuous actions in relation to or in connection with sentient beings. Now, if you avoid the non-virtuous actions, then if you are totally altruistic and compassionate to sentient beings, then that would automatically stop you from doing the 10 non-virtuous actions. Although with this kind of altruism, then it makes a great difference. And in one of the texts, so this kind of infinite altruism helps us to avoid the bad states of existence, and it leads us to the higher rebirth, and then finally, as an ultimate product of it, it leads us to that of Buddhahood. And it is said in the text that although you are dedicated fully for the benefit of others, you're motivated by this benefit to benefit all sentient beings. With that kind of attitude, what happens is your own interest will be fulfilled as a byproduct. So in history, Mahatma Gandhi, who lived a very poor who lived with very poor living conditions, but he was well educated, and then he won the trust of others in Africa, in Europe, America, and everywhere in the world. Mahatma Gandhi has become very famous. It's not because he was very powerful and with all kinds of authority and so forth, but he lived a very simple life. But he was dedicated to the well-being of others, and used his intelligence and make them way. And because of that, he's become popular and famous. On the other hand, you have other people like Hitler and so forth, who were ruthless. When they are provoked, the slightest provocation would lead them to even kill other people, take life of others, and crush them. So here, the verse number 11 shows that although you think think of benefiting others, you also reap the harvest as a byproduct for your own fulfill your own interest. And then from verse number 12 to 17, when you cultivate this, when you think of cultivating the path of benefiting others, of course, people who don't like you and who have different opinions from you and so forth, they might cause hindrance. So when you meet with these different obstacles, you should not fall prey to them, but you have to be firm with your practice of bodhicitta. Then verse number 18 and 19. So when a practitioner of Dharma is full of difficulty, impoverished, there may be chances that they would develop suspicion about the Buddhas and so forth. For example, a Japanese, because of the tsunami, if they're weak, then they might think that the recitation of Heart Sutra did not really help. And then also, if you though gripped by poverty and always scorn, verse number 18, though stricken by acute illness and possessed by evil spirits, to take upon yourself the negative suffering of every being and never to get discouraged is the practice of Bodhisattva. So of course we have to have pride, but then arrogance, overestimation of yourself is not good. So you would rather disregard others with arrogance. So you can feel confident and proud of your own ability, the potential that you have. You can think that I have the Buddha nature, I am a human being with this human intelligence and so forth. And then here you are not really disregarding others or belittling others, but thinking about your qualities. And accordingly, you would think of doing the good. So the bodhisattvas do not disregard others or belittle others, but they are full of self-confidence. Yeah. So you should not belittle yourself. In other words, verse number 18 is showing that, because that can be an hindrance. And then verse number 19 says that if you are too luxurious, then that would also be an hindrance to Dharma practice. So if you're too rich then and powerful and you have some kind of authority and so forth, you would be full of pride and full of arrogance. And so that also is not good. Being proud or arrogant about your wealth and power and so forth is stupid. So if you're wise, then you will not try to lose your principle. You will be a principled person. Whereas if you are not unwise, then some people even become mad with power and so forth. For example, Gaddafi is really a crazy person. He's mad with power and he thinks he is the best, he has all power and so forth, but all the world is rather laughing at him. And then number 20 shows the how we should cultivate the antidotes to attachment and anger. So these two are, and also those of competitive feeling and jealousy causes us to have lots of enemies. So the main cause of having enemies is our own anger, attachment and so forth. So long as you are not able to overcome these negativities within yourself, then there is no way you can overcome the enemies out who are outside of you. Even if you may be able to overcome them once, they will gather together and gather their powers and come back. So even if you may be able to overcome certain external enemy today, they will come back again. I knew an Englishman who was a friend of Thailand, and he was really fond of the Chinese communists. And he came to see me here one time with lots of pictures of Lhasa. So when he first came to see me, he had a certain kind of attitude towards me because of having been brainwashed by the Chinese, from whom he has heard that about me. So all the pictures that he took of people and so forth were just of people, those people who were just like acting. So in the first day, after he showed me all these pictures, he became a little bit convinced, and then at the end of the third day of our meeting, he became my friend. So because of because I was really honest with him when he showed me the pictures, he was slowly convinced. So if I had been rather pompous and not be honest with him, then we would not have become friends. And so. So if there are things which are helpful for you to help others, then you have to do that. But if you are just become greedy and attached to the thing, then it doesn't really help. For example, if you are thirsty and if you take some salted water, then you will feel more and more thirsty instead of quenching the thirst. So with regard to wealth and money, if you have 100, you want 1,000, and then until million, billions, and so forth. So, however rich a person may be, they have only 10 fingers. And then if they were to put 10 rings on their 10 fingers, that wouldn't look so nice. And then the rich people also have the same size of stomach, and they don't have a bigger stomach than us. So of course, people, the rich people can put 2 or 3 rings on their fingers, but if they put one ring on each of the fingers on their hands, then that wouldn't look nice. And then there are people, rich people, who spend their whole night in gambling, and then they don't get enough sleep. And then, in order to get some sleep, they take medicines or the alcohol and so forth, and finally they destroy themselves, ruin themselves. They get disease of liver and cancer and so forth. And so you have to be contented. Verse number 22 shows that of the ultimate bodhicitta. So all appearances are your own mind, and mind itself can moderate and transcend all mental fabrications. Knowing this, and to remain free from apprehending the signs of subject and object, is the practice of Bodhisattva. So this is similar to what is said in the stages of meditation that we covered. From the point of view of the Savatantrika, Yogacara Savatantrika Madhyamaka philosophy. And then the next verse shows that you have to, after having meditated on emptiness, then you have to come out of meditation. When you come out of meditation on emptiness, you should see everything as being like illusion. And as it is said in the 7-point instructions on mind training, this is the same. That it says during the breaks, session breaks, you have to be like an illusory person. And then 31 says, this is a really great advice. If you do not analyze your own faults, you might put a dharmic facade while behaving in non-dharmic ways. Therefore, to continually analyze your fault and then discard it is the practice of a bodhisattva. And so when I met Mao Zedong, he said that you have to acknowledge your own fault, and when you are criticized by others of your faults, you have to acknowledge them. So this is very good advice. So this verse number 31 also says the same thing. So you have to recognize your own faults, and then when others criticize others, you have to acknowledge them. And we have a saying in Tibetan that a good friend should point out the mistakes of yourself. And so, otherwise, if you are not able to see your own faults, then you may put up a dharmic facade, but you will do all kinds of non-dharmic practices. So in 1957, Mao Zedong spread this 100-flower, something called 100-flower ceremony, something like that, and where the intellectuals and people who will learn it were asked to criticize the government and so forth. And after they did that, then all these intellectuals were arrested and imprisoned. And so, by doing such things, people lose faith in you. So, if the realism that the communist Chinese have in the beginning had continued until today, China would not be like today, where So Jigme Milarepa has said that when he was asked what is Nanglamangye means that which appears but is not ascertained, some kind of a state of mind or cognition. And Jigme Milarepa said someone who appears like a Dharma practitioner but internally he or she is not a Dharma practitioner is like that. So we have to use the yardstick of the Dharma and accordingly apply the Dharma within ourselves. And as I said yesterday, we have to make this life meaningful, make this human life meaningful through study and meditation. And the monks and nuns should not just be contented with the robes, wearing the robes. And then from 32, 33, 34, 35, up to verse number 34, shows certain obstacles that the Bodhisattva might encounter. If you are overpowered by the delusions, the destructive thoughts and emotions, then you will become like a mad person. So therefore, right from the beginning, when the delusions set in, you have to try to show, overcome them. And then verse number 35. Even it says that even when you are in your sleep, you'll be able to show mindfulness. For example, if you are a bhikshu, you should be able to even feel that you are a bhikshu even in dream. This can come through the training of the mind. And then after verse number 37, what the verse which says by relying on the words of genuine masters and so forth, this shows the sources on which the author has based himself. So this shows the whole structure of the Dharma. So I thought it would be good to cover a broad range of the Dharma. So with this we are finished. So the Thai Dharma brothers and sisters, and also people who have come from other places, perhaps I should do the generation of Bodhicitta. So for this, imagine the Buddha Shakyamuni in person. Imagine that the Shakyamuni Buddha is here in person, and then you can also imagine those of the 7 successors of the Buddha, such as Mahakashapa, and then also masters like Nagarjuna, Indian masters like Nagarjuna and so forth, and also the Thai masters, Vietnamese masters, Koreans, Japanese. So you can also imagine your own past masters. So with these in visualization, we will take refuge in the 3 jewels, and this is what is known as 7 branch practice. It says, whatever slight positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing, and requesting that the Buddha stay and teach, I now dedicate all this for full awakening. So having done that, then if it's convenient, please kneel on your right knee. If it's not convenient for you, then it's okay not to do that. So the verse that we will recite after His Holiness is, with the wish to free, or we'll say just the one verse of taking refuge and bodhicitta. So the first two lines in this prayer is refuge, shows refuge, which says, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I'm enlightened. So think that from now on, I will, at best, I will try to help others. But even if I'm not able to help others, benefit others, I will not do anything that harms or hurts them. And whatever good spiritual merit I have cultivated, may they become causes for my enlightenment, for the benefit of all sentient beings. The practices that I've done, such as generosity and so forth, may they become causes for me to become Buddha for the sake of sentient beings. Sanje chedan sogi chunam sanje pato tami kyapsu chitaga chinso gebe tsonam ki dola penche sanje drubar sho sanje chedan sogi chonam la sanje pato tami kyapsu chi daga chinso gebe tsonam ki dola penche sanje drubar sho. So with this you have generated bodhicitta. So that's all.
We again going to meet, and then some questions. Any questions I would like to take from the Thai brothers sisters, like that. Thank you much. Yeah, that's awesome.
Dāgi gēwē tsāwā dīgū yā sāmbō chūchī rabdō ngō wā rā gī